turn up the vibration.
Well,
That would be hilarious.
that is an excellent intro to this next episode of the Degreelessness podcast, starring myself, a legendary man of sorts, Shanghai Pete, the people's champion, your good buddy in the mix, and the filthy, the fine, Uptown Bobby. What's poppin', Bobby?
Greetings.
Greetings. Thanks for
Ohio.
saving me. All right, so in this episode, basically, Bobby pointed out to me that I've been spending a great deal of time complaining about Final Fantasy 16, which is...
I didn't use those words.
No, you did not use those words, to be fair. You did not.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I've been discussing it a lot, shall we say. And as any regular viewers probably are aware, I don't like that it looks like a fucking Devil May Cry game. I don't like that it seems that that's the direction that the entire franchise is moving. I don't like it at all. It pisses me off. I play role-playing games to relax, to chill, to vibe with the story, not to be sitting on the edge of my seat sweatily gripping a fucking controller, desperately trying to beat some insanely fucking tuned, I suppose, combat, like action combat encounter. That's not the type... Basically, I guess my point is that this is gameplay that should have no place in an RPG. And it's really been getting on my nerves. I've talked about it quite a bit, and it is the reason that I'm really not excited for Final Fantasy 16 whatsoever. And that makes me sad, because I am a long-time enjoyer of Final Fantasy. I love those fucking games. Final Fantasy 8 is one of my favorite games of all time, and seeing the franchise move in a direction that makes me have zero interest in it really bums me out. Bobby?
Well, I'm curious about something you said where you were talking about relaxing. You
Right.
play RPGs to relax. When you play Quake, do you feel relaxed? When you play Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal, do you feel relaxed? Can you get yourself in a state of meditation where it's more calming, and you're not packed with adrenaline and you're actually just chilling and enjoying yourself and vibing? Or are you in a state of heightened, are you like in a heightened activated state playing those games as well?
Yeah, yes, I would say.
You are in a heightened state.
Yeah, but I would also say that relaxing doesn't preclude feeling like that necessarily.
Well, no, but I mean, there are some people who, like, there's certainly games that are, like, fast and action-based that can be very relaxing for me doing rote, whereas there are action games where I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat, my heart is pounding.
But my point...
And I understand there's a degree of relaxation, but there's also a place where you can get vibe and, like, actually chill and relax. And that's what I'm asking is if you are feeling heightened or not when playing those games.
I am, and I would also add that this is an issue, in my view, this is an issue of everything in its right place.
Right.
When I sit down and fire up like Doom Eternal or some shit, I'm doing that because I want to play an action game. I want to feel the adrenaline of fucking desperately trying to survive on Ultra Nightmare of Doom Eternal.
Right.
That's why I'm doing it. I am not seeking that same experience when I fire up a fucking RPG that's supposed to be engrossing me in its storytelling.
Well, I will
that is my point.
I will say this. For me, I have not. I look at Square Enix as very corporate, and as I don't look to them as I once did to set the tone for the entire industry. And so it doesn't really bother me because I have had issues. We can get to like where their battle systems have changed and how it's been a long time since I've even really played through or cared about a Final Fantasy. I have not even played 1 minute of Final Fantasy 15, while FF6 is one of my favorite games ever.
And I would even say, not to cut you off, but I would even say that is in service of my point. How much more likely do you suspect it would be that you would have at least tried Final Fantasy 15 if you did not already know that it was an open world action game?
0, because I'm really interested in 16. I think it was less about that and more about the presentation of 15 as like very brown, a bunch of dudes hanging out together and driving around in a car, which I still want to try it, but like they didn't sell me on it like they've already way sold me on 16.
Okay, so that's interesting, actually. You just, I would say, very effectively summarized what FF15 is about.
What, driving around with your boys?
Yeah, driving around with the Backstreet Boys. Yeah,
driving around with the Backstreet Boys in a brown environment.
I don't know where you got brown. The game is not very. I mean, there's like a dusty, like American Midwest type area, but overall, I would not say the game is brown.
Okay.
But regardless, you offered up a very effective summary of Final Fantasy 15.
That's amazing considering I've never played it.
Well, I mean, it just means their marketing was effective, right? But on the other hand, what is FF16? Make that same summary of FF16 and tell me why that looks more appealing to you.
I'm not sure yet. What is appealing about FF16 is, first and foremost, I would say I am feeling a real, I have a PS5, I am feeling a real ache for games that take advantage of the system. I feel like I still have not played anything that has impressed me more in terms of what the hardware can do than Demon's Souls. I didn't try that Matrix Resurrected demo thing, but Demon's Souls in terms of, now while Demon's Souls looks okay, the particle effects
Matrix Resurrected thing
amazing.
doesn't count because it's a tech demo. It's not a game.
But Demon's Souls, the lighting, the particle effects, all that showed me that there's so much that PS5 can do. And
What system did you play Elden Ring on?
PS5.
And you felt that Demon's Souls looked better than Elden Ring?
Oh, by leaps and bounds.
By leaps and bounds.
Without question. The particle effects and everything, it doesn't even touch it. Elden Ring doesn't.
Wow.
Elden Ring looks great, but it does not come close to using the power of the PS5.
Wow.
It doesn't even open that door. Like, whoa.
Is Elden Ring a PS4 game?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I hear some.
Let's disconnect your Switch from my computer. How about that? Okay. Sorry about that.
Elden Ring does. So let's get back to this. Graphically, I'm feeling a real lack of games. So the PS5 exclusive games that I've played like.
So to me, what I'm hearing is not someone who's excited for a Final Fantasy game. I'm hearing someone who's excited for a game that will look pretty on their new system.
It's not.
That's what I'm hearing.
It's not just looking pretty. It's that first and foremost, I think that it's going to really. Square Enix has long used Final Fantasy as a means to push gaming into it's the standard of tech in games. Final Fantasy VII was like that. In a lot of ways, Final Fantasy X was like that. Maybe it hasn't been like that since, but this seems like it really is. They're really showing off explosive graphics.
In support of your point, FF6 was like one of the last major tech releases on the Super Nintendo. FF7 set a milestone for graphics on the PlayStation. Then FF10 did the same thing right around. It wasn't a launch PS2 title, but it came out within like a year or so of PS2 launching.
Early life cycle.
And also FF13 came out very early in the life cycle of the PS3.
And was that considered to be at that time very technically impressive?
I'm pretty sure it was.
It was a great looking game. I just don't remember
when we played it together at first, and I remember thinking that it looked fucking crazy.
It looked amazing. My question isn't, did it look amazing? It looked amazing.
It did. It absolutely did.
But my question was just like, was it at the time?
It even still looks decent today, actually.
So first of all, I'm very impressed by look and feel and the idea that they may be taking this system to finally to the levels it should be at.
Sure.
I do like action RPGs. I love Elden Ring. I like action systems. I like feeling like I am I can use my skill in order to play the game in my own way. That's why I enjoyed the combat in Crisis Core Reunion, even though I thought the story was did nothing for me, and eventually the combat was so rote. But I got a good 6 to 8 hours just doing the combat, even though it's really basically button mashing. I still really enjoyed it.
I mean, that does speak highly of its combat system, if nothing else.
It's enemy variety, it's flashy abilities and particle effects. That's fun.
I'm still not hearing anything that has anything to do with Final Fantasy as a reason.
Like I just said, enemy variety, ability variety. You may have the chance to see and do all these different things to all these different creatures and different environments. A Final Fantasy provides you with the opportunity to see and do a ton of different things in a ton of different places. And considering where games are narratively today, there's a very high standard coming off of things like God of War and Last of Us, and Final Fantasy is going to have to really bring it in the narrative department, I don't know how Final Fantasy 15's story was. Fucking things like Death Stranding go over so well and have really made impact in terms of what narrative are. I didn't play Death Stranding, sadly, I'll admit that here. But I think that FF16 is going to have a phenomenal story also amid these great gameplay elements and showcase for the system.
That's an interesting way to put that as well, because the games that you just mentioned specifically that it would be competing with in a narrative department, Last of Us and God of War, are both very much not RPGs, which comes back around to my main thesis, my issue, is that I do not like when RPGs, not across the board, but in general, I do not like it when you get your action game systems in my RPG.
Well, God of War has equipment, upgrading, skill trees, experience, essentially leveling up.
So does Assassin's Creed and shit like that.
Does it?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's quite elaborate actually.
Well,
so does Horizon. I think Horizon Zero Dawn has that shit too.
So they have. So I mean, there's RPG elements there, and action RPGs have been around forever, and
they have. You could easily bring up games like Secret of Mana, my favorite game of all time, is technically an action RPG.
Yeah, Tales of Fantasia, Star Ocean.
Sure, but those are
The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, but
arguably, I don't think that's an RPG. But I
would call Zelda an action adventure game.
I would call Zelda an action adventure game as well.
I get that. Then
although you do level up
in Zelda,
you get hearts.
Yeah, but you don't have a level. That's like saying you level up in Metroid because you get energy containers, and you do not level up in Metroid. You level up in Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
You do. I mean, Castlevania Symphony of the Night is unequivocally an action RPG.
And so I guess that brings us to another very interesting question. What the fuck is an RPG then? Is it just a battle system? And if it is, by that token, Final Fantasy hasn't been an RPG in quite some time. But I first of all, just right off rip, I do not think that an RPG is just a battle system. But when you have, especially with Final Fantasy now, when you're merging elements of like extreme high skill cap action games into a game that has historically been almost the poster child for role-playing games. And then you also have games like God of War, which although I'm not personally super into, I can definitely acknowledge those are towering achievements in the narrative department, but they also have extreme elements of role-playing games in them. So what the fuck is an RPG then? Is it just, oh, my character has stats and a level, so that's an RPG? Is an equipment management system all that you need to be an RPG?
What is the Call answer? Of Duty.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So like, what the fuck is an RPG then?
It's really hard to say. I couldn't even say it's like tracing its lineage to Dungeons and Dragons because you don't. I'm trying to think about RPG. So a Dungeons is there. You know, there's games that have leveling up that aren't RPGs, like things like that have God of War like this. I would not call God of War an RPG at all, despite having experience and all that. But why? Like what,
that's the question. It has a deep story. It has an equipment upgrade system.
Yeah.
It has a talent tree and skill and skill system.
It has a skill tree.
It has level. Does God of War have levels?
No, you don't level up. But but you get when you beat significant story bosses.
Yeah.
That's when you get your weapon upgrades, which is your level up.
Sure.
But it's not an RPG though. Still, even with
however,
all that, it's not an RPG.
And this is really going to bake your noodle. Chrono Cross, you do not have a level either. You get stars.
And when do you get stars?
Whenever you beat a major boss or a major plot point.
So exactly
right?
like God of War.
And but most people would not bat an eye at saying, "Oh, God of War is not an RPG," but those same people would say that Chrono Cross definitely is an RPG. So what actually defines an RPG these days? In this modern era, what defines an RPG?
I think,
and that's where we get back to my question: is the only real difference a fucking turn-based battle system?
No, it's definitely
okay. Sell me on that point.
Well, Civilization is not an RPG.
No, but you could argue that there's no main character and overarching specific story that's being told in Civilization either.
I'm trying to think about an RPG that doesn't necessarily focus on one singular character. That's hard.
And you can't say Octopath Traveler, that's cheating.
No. I meant more like a group of people. So, all right. So not Civilization. A game. Well, turn-based games. I mean, well, I have said that chess is the original tactical RPG. Because, hear me out. Chess has leveling up. It has job classes. You can level up when you fucking advance a pawn and can.
And I suppose the names of the pieces are right there, waiting for you to turn them into a story. You know, you could easily.
Each one has its own skill set.
You could easily fictionalize a chess game by writing a story out of it. I suppose
every single one of them has 1 HP. And they just have different abilities, different battle abilities. But yeah, is that an RPG? Is chess an RPG?
I would say it's a tactical battle. Maybe I should rephrase my original point. Not a turn-based battle system,
I'm trying to think about turn-based games. There's so many turn-based games that aren't RPGs. Monopoly.
I mean, yeah, you can't clearly that's painting with too broad a stroke because you can't. I do not mean that any game where you trade off turns is an RPG. No,
any game where you don't is not.
Yeah, I mean,
is Star Ocean not an RPG?
Because it's technically you input action commands. It happened. The battle system.
Destiny, not an RPG.
See, I would put it to you that I would describe Tales of Destiny and Star Ocean's battle systems as active time battle systems, or real time battle systems, not necessarily action battle systems.
But you have full control over your characters and can attack.
Yeah, but it's extremely basic. It's block, it's block, attack, and special. And maybe if spell, basically.
So because you're in a temporary closed arena, that makes some sort of difference. Because it's not the entire game, it's only little bits of the game. It's still an action battle system, and those are RPGs. But what makes them an RPG? I don't know. It's not that you level up.
See, this is what I'm saying. This is fucking fascinating. When was the last time someone really tried to define an RPG?
But I mean, well, what is, do we need to? I think that we need.
I mean, from a certain perspective, no one needs to, but I want to get down to why I feel it is inappropriate why I feel what they're doing to Final Fantasy is inappropriate and ruining it.
I mean, I think it's important to understand the language and why we choose to define it like that. And I think it is important that we are able to define things that we like, so that we're able to use those things to
get more things that we like.
Use collective agreed upon vocabulary to get more things that we like. So when you're in a team, you're like, let's make an RPG. You have a sense of what's going into it.
What the fuck do people mean? The Witcher is a fantastic RPG.
But it's not even a fantasy setting anymore. And I mean, I would say that
Witcher's a fantasy setting. Or you mean fantasy in general doesn't mean RPG.
Disco Elysium, I'd say, is an RPG. It definitely is an RPG because you level up tons of stuff. You have equipment. You have skill checks that are done with dice rolls like Dungeons and Dragons. Disco Elysium is an RPG. There are no turns.
The first RPGs were basically Dungeons and Dragons systems and dice rolls coded.
Yes.
So, I mean that's
Disco
what the first
Elysium,
RPG.
I don't know.
So actually that's interesting.
Combat, but there's no turns.
But is that
Definitely
where we
an
can
RPG.
trace back the origins of an RPG?
Dungeons and Dragons, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So I think we can agree
That's
at least that the origin of RPG is Dungeons and Dragons.
That is the ur-text
in which
of RPG.
You play the role of a character, and the mechanics that facilitate you playing the role of that character are stats, character stats, and dice rolls, the outcome of which are largely determined by those character stats.
That's correct.
That is the origin of an RPG. And right there, we uncovered why I have a problem with action battle systems in RPGs in general, is because the outcome of these battles are now dependent on how well you can hit the block or parry or combos within the battle and not reliant on your fucking stats. That's what pisses me off.
So
wow, I didn't think we'd get to the bottom of it that fast, but that is that is absolutely the problem. That's why I don't like it. That's also why God of War is not an RPG, because the outcome of battles and your progression through that game is determined by your skill in manipulating that character in an action sequence and not by his statistics. Statistics that have the values that they do due to your choices in the game. What equipment you have bought, what equipment you haven't, what you've chosen to spend money on in terms of gear, and what you have chose to forego.
So then Tales of Destiny is not an RPG. By that definition, Tales of Destiny is not an RPG.
It is because...
It's not.
No, it is because no matter how good you are at that fucking, what do they call it, a linear motion battle system?
Yeah,
is that what they call it? No matter how skilled you are at that, if you have not leveled your stats up, if you have not chosen to purchase the correct weapons to give your attack and whatever the fuck else stats the correct values, no matter how good you are at that, you will lose.
Yeah, but
you will not be able to progress.
That's the same way that it is in tons of other action RPGs. That's the way it is in Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, absolutely not.
What,
absolutely
if
not.
You don't have enough
You
gear?
could go through that entire game with the first piece of equipment you get, never upgrading it wouldn't make a fuck bit of difference.
I can't.
And I
can't. All right, fine. Let's say.
I suspect.
Let me choose a game that I've actually played.
Okay, and I suspect the same is true of God of War.
Like,
I cannot tell you
all
for
right.
sure because I don't have the experience
No, you
with
absolutely
it.
could. No, you absolutely could not play through God of War with your starting equipment. No.
Really?
I mean, you could if you were doing some kind of like YouTube challenge run, but not a fucking chance could you do that. And I suspect that's true of Final Fantasy also. I think you're fronting right now. I believe.
I'm absolutely not.
I bet you would need extreme skill
I played
to
through
just
that.
use
I
your
played through
starting
that game
equipment.
twice, and both times I changed my main weapon once.
Did you upgrade other gear?
No, there is no other gear to upgrade.
So that means that
there's you have like 2 accessory slots, and that's it.
So forget it. I mean, I'm not gonna defend this game I haven't played. What about Elden Ring? And the entire Dark Souls series. Games that are deeply rooted in Dungeons and Dragons, much closer to the source material than tons of other RPGs. They're so deeply rooted in Dungeons and Dragons lore, and they are deeply rooted. Your stats are absolutely everything. Not only your stats, but your weapon stats. Like you're even going. It's so Dungeons and Dragons based. Your skills have charges. Finite charges,
sure,
in some of those games.
But no matter how fucking good you are, if you don't have certain stats, you will die. Or is that making your point for you?
No, but that's not true. No, that's not true. How good you are, if you are insanely good, you can do. I myself have gotten very far in like a one soul level run in Dark Souls, where I have never leveled up. And just grabbed the pyromancy stuff. I did level up the pyromancy stuff, but on my own personal stats, I left all at 0.
Okay, so, all right, let me revise. A good action RPG. I'm gonna submit to you a premise that I have now newly formulated, and now you will attempt to take it apart. Okay? New premise. A good action RPG is one that relies equally on your skill in manipulating a character in an action sequence and the RPG elements, the stats, and your gear. That is a good action RPG. Would you agree with that?
I mean, not necessarily, because
where like you wouldn't be able to succeed.
I think
you need both in order to succeed. Basically, you need skill as an action gamer, but you also need to pay attention to your gear and your stats.
No, because and my counter to that is the Diablo series, because I don't think you need any real skill to play Diablo.
Oh, I totally disagree. I am very bad at it. I disagree because I'm bad at it.
I think if I gave you a rotation and you were able to stick to that rotation, that you would do just fine. Diablo
yeah, but that in and of itself requires a good amount of skill.
Diablo come on. Come on, this is a ridiculous. You are not going to compare the skill required to play Elden Ring or Dark Souls and the skill required to play Diablo, which is simply
You're right. No, I'm not.
managing
No, I'm not.
cooldowns versus actually like telegraphed boss abilities.
You're
dodge
right.
rolling.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
We're talking about like Diablo's skill is very, very minor compared. They're very different beasts. Diablo you can play with no activation. Like we were talking about that Doom activation. Diablo is a game I'm sure you could play without getting wound up or feeling tense.
I mean, to a certain point, like, dude, Diablo games get very fucking chaotic and hectic. And especially on higher difficulties, you will get raped
And what about
if you do not know what you're doing.
What about World of Warcraft also?
World of Warcraft is way more about your... Well,
It's the only difference is that you're not actively clicking on an enemy.
I need
while doing your
to make a
cooldown.
distinction here. I'm referring to classic World of Warcraft.
Well, it's the battle systems between Diablo and World of Warcraft. What's the difference in the battle systems of those two games? There's one, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one
Your
difference.
movement and positioning in Diablo is crucial, whereas as long as you're simply in front of the mob you're attacking in World of Warcraft, your positioning doesn't matter. I mean, that is a very very generalized. There's certainly scenarios where that's not technically the case, but in general, if you have good gear, you can just walk up to a mob in World of Warcraft, right-click to start auto-attacking, and your stats on your gear alone will determine whether or not you triumph. It has nothing to do with how you move your character, has nothing to do with what abilities you fucking click on. If you start auto-attacking, it is your stats that determine whether you kill that mob. Now, of course, if you add in like a whole bunch of mobs or a scenario where you're like tanking a dungeon or something, a lot more things come into play. But at its very basic level, all that happens when you initiate combat is a bunch of D&D fucking dice rolls. That's all that happens.
So the only difference is that you have to aim in Diablo.
I mean, your positioning is is crucial.
But
You have to be dodging very complex enemy fucking mechanics all the time in Diablo, or you're gonna get annihilated.
You just gotta move out of void zones.
It's way more than that, dude.
Complex.
It's way more than that. They look like shooter hell screens.
When they have, what are the ones that are the purple beams
I have no fucking
that
idea.
drop? Okay, I mean,
Dude, an advanced, think about the fucking hell runs or whatever they're called in Diablo 3.
dude, I have played hundreds and hundreds of hours of Diablo 3. They're just void zones.
That could not be farther from the truth. There is zero truth in that. Though
Then please explain what the counter
every
is.
boss in Diablo 3 is shooting projectiles at you that you have to actively dodge. Constantly.
It's really more void zones. And
I don't know how we- I don't know how-
still translate to void zones, like electric beams. That
I
are
don't know
moving
how
towards
we
you
can
are
solve this
still void
without
zones.
pulling up a video of Diablo 3 combat. I don't know, and I don't think it's worth.
I mean,
doing
I don't
that
need
right now.
to because I know that I'm right.
And I would say the same thing. I would say the same thing to you.
You are not doing skilled dodges of boss abilities in Diablo 3. That's just like there is like the dodge roll exists, but you are not leaping out of the way of abilities like you are in Elden
And I would
Ring
say you
in Diablo.
100% are.
Okay, it is not the case, which is why there is no dodge roll in the PC version of Diablo 3 because dodging is not a critical mechanic. It is
Tell that to the Demon Hunter.
Rolling around is a Demon Hunter's skill. It's not a dodge roll. It's part of how the Demon Hunter works. The dodge roll was something that was implemented in the console versions of Diablo as a nice to have. It never was implemented in the PC version because it's not critical to play because you don't have to dodge.
Okay, you're right.
enemy
There's no
abilities.
dodging in Diablo. You're right. Okay.
If it were a critical gameplay component, the dodge roll would be in all versions of the game. It's a nice to have that's in the console version.
And I think the idea that the threats in Diablo 3 are simply step out of the void zone is ridiculously oversimplified. I would have gotten.
It is definitely that is ultimately it all comes down to step out of the void zone. Don't stand where the enemy abilities are happening.
Well, by that logic, Radiant Silvergun is nothing but step out of the void zone.
No, Radiant Silvergun is dodge active bullets that are coming at
And
you.
I say those mechanics are aplenty in Diablo 3.
I'm telling you, you are misremembering Diablo 3. That is what I'm saying is you are misremembering Diablo 3. Those gameplay mechanics are not in Diablo 3. Or at least are extraordinarily minimal compared to void zones. All that amounts to avoid those. The electricity, those purple beams, poison, fire, all that stuff.
All right, this conversation is over. I don't want to go. You're right. You're right. I'm wrong. It doesn't speak to the greater point. It doesn't matter. You're right. Let's say for those
we can agree to disagree.
Let's say for those listening at home, Bobby wins this round. I forfeit, as it were. That's not what I want. What were we even fucking talking about before this goddamn
we were
Diablo
talking about
fucking digression?
We were talking about Elden Ring, and your original point was that it has to be turn-based to be an RPG, and then you said it doesn't have to be turn-based.
No, it wasn't. That was my supposition.
But then you started talking about action RPG, and now but Elden Ring is
No. What I had boiled it down to was that in an RPG, the most important thing are your stats, not your reflexes. And that is my point.
Is Dark Souls an RPG?
I would say Elden Ring is an excellent example of an action RPG.
But it is an RPG.
Without question.
Okay, so so it does not have to be turn-based to be an RPG. Thus, Final Fantasy could theoretically pull off a non-turn-based battle system and still be considered an excellent RPG. If Elden Ring is an RPG...
It could be considered an excellent RPG. It could not be considered an excellent RPG. It could be considered an excellent action RPG. And that is the distinction that I'm making. I do not want Final Fantasy to be an action RPG. To put it another way, I do not want my reflexes to have anything to do with my success in a game that is supposed to be purely an RPG. I think that is the best way that I can state my point. I do not want to have to think about my reflexes and dodging and parrying at the exact moment and using the dodge mechanic to get out of certain special attacks and shit. I do not want to have to think about any of that.
Final Fantasy specifically.
In games that are solely RPGs broadly, but for the purposes of this discussion, specifically Final Fantasy.
But how does that differ from your enjoyment of Elden Ring? Because that is an RPG
Because
broadly.
I go into Elden Ring expecting that that's what the gameplay is going to be.
So it is specific to Final Fantasy.
No, I stand by what I just said a second ago. Yes, specifically to Final Fantasy, yes, but broadly to RPGs that are supposed to be dedicated RPGs in general. If I fired up Persona 5, and instead of the turn-based battle system that there is, I had to fucking worry about parrying at the right time, I would be pissed, and I would have put it down.
But what's the difference between that and Elden Ring?
The difference is expectation. The difference is that I expected that from Elden Ring. I knew from the jump that Elden Ring was an action game. It was an action RPG. So from the jump, I knew that if I want to play this, I go in expecting to have to deal with an action combat
this is
system.
about your expectations of Final Fantasy. That's my point.
And I'll say this for the third time. Broadly, anything that is specifically an RPG, but for the purposes of this discussion, yes,
so
specifically Final Fantasy.
So what you're saying is when you hear something described as an RPG, your immediate thought is turn-based. And when you hear it's not, you're disappointed.
Yeah, correct.
So you were disappointed when you heard that Elden Ring would not be turn-based?
No, because I knew Elden Ring was a Dark Souls game.
So if you hear the term RPG, you want it to be turn-based. No matter what. That's your...
If I hear the term RPG, yes. If I hear action RPG, then obviously I'm not going to expect it to be turn-based. Elden Ring has always been...
So this is strictly just about terminology?
No, it's about expectation.
But why does it... I think you're getting really hung up on the verbiage.
I mean, call it whatever the fuck you want. That doesn't matter. What matters is that when I go into a game that is being called and advertised an RPG, let alone a series that is known as an RPG, I do not want to, surprise, be confronted with a combat tutorial that's impressing upon me the importance of dodging and parrying correctly.
Okay, so...
That's my fucking point.
Do RPGs, turn-based RPGs, with in-battle timed mechanics, what happens to them, such as Mario RPG, the entire Mario and Luigi series, the Yakuza Like a Dragon game, etc.
I have not played any of those games.
You've never played Mario RPG?
Oh no, Mario RPG I played, yes.
Okay, those are all games where timed button presses in the middle of battle are absolutely critical. So,
Yes.
where do those fall?
But
That's extremely skill-based.
That's like pulling out the fucking gunblade trigger in FF8 and saying, because of this, it's not a turn-based battle system. That's ridiculous.
It's not. It's not. Those are completely different things because
The fact that some attacks have an element of precision button pressing on them
almost
does
all
not make
skill attacks. Almost all skill attacks and almost all enemy attacks that need to be defended require a timed skill-based button press.
Yes, but it's still not an action battle system. Yeah, timing a certain button press at some points is not the same as having to manually control a character moving around like I'm in a fucking Devil May Cry game.
So it is okay for there to be skill-based elements as long as it's rooted in turn-based. As long as you can control...
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying, yeah.
You can control when the skill check happens rather than having it come at you unexpected.
Yeah, I do not want to be playing Devil May Cry. The point is that when I pick up an RPG, I am not expecting it to be surprise it's Devil May Cry.
I mean, if it were... But what confuses me is if Final Fantasy 16 came out and it had no turn-based and it was as good as Elden Ring, would it matter that it wasn't turn-based? I think the issue is quality.
Yes.
And creativity and design, and that it is hard that people do action games. People do have a hard time making action RPGs interesting.
It's very.
But you have a hard time making turn-based RPGs interesting too. They've been the same fucking thing for 35 years.
And I put it to you that there's a reason they've been the same thing for 35 years because that works.
No, I strongly disagree, and I think that most turn-based RPGs that are extremely basic today are garbage. And I think that's part of the reason why Undertale was such an enormous success, because it took turn-based RPGs and turned them on their head. And honestly, as such a big fan of turn-based RPGs, the fact that you haven't played Undertale is fucking shocking, considering it is absolutely one of the best turn-based RPGs of all time. Top 3, no question. Top 3, easy.
The art and the story in Undertale make me completely uninterested in it.
Dude, you don't know the story, and the story is seriously so unbelievably fantastic. It blows away the story of every single Final Fantasy game except maybe 6.
Well, that I have no problem believing, because let's be honest,
games are not great.
Yeah, the stories of Final Fantasy games are not great. They're often very well told or presented, but not necessarily great. But, I mean, to be honest, Undertale, it looks kind of like fucking Earthbound, and I just never liked that shit.
Yes, the graphics are very hard to get past.
However, I mean, that's the reason that I gave up on Return to Monkey Island.
But it's also, it's a turn-based, it is much like Mario RPG. It's a turn-based, are you familiar with how the battle system works?
In Undertale?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I've never played even 5 seconds of it.
It's a turn-based battle system, but then when you get into the actual battles, the way you fight enemies is avoiding bullet hell segments briefly.
I would hate that.
It's fantastic.
I believe that
it is an RPG.
I believe that
it is a turn-based RPG. It is an extraordinarily traditional turn-based RPG at that. Extraordinarily traditional.
Things like being in a bullet hell segment in Undertale, or hitting the right button combination to do your specials in Tales of Destiny, or hitting the fucking controller button at the right time in Mario RPG. Those are an element of the turn-based battle system. They are not the entirety, the whole of the battle system. Whereas if you play FF15 and what it looks like in FF16, the whole of the battle system is we've put you into a Devil May Cry game.
What is the battle system of FF15, since I've never played it?
You run up to fucking mobs on the field and you press X to swing your sword at them.
And you spam it?
Yeah, and there's also, for some reason, a lot of people like this.
So it is a full-on action RPG.
Oh, 100%, absolutely.
And you don't like it?
No, and there's something, I think it's your stamina system, I don't remember exactly what it is, but you have a stamina or some stat like that you need to keep up, and it regenerates over time, and when it runs out, you have to throw your sword in a teleport to like a position of safety and then hang from it until you regen your stamina or whatever they call it, and then you get back into the fighting. So you spend so much of the battles like hanging from a lamppost that you've thrown your sword into, waiting for like some shit to regen. It's so poorly implemented. It's
Well, my biggest question was, is it a true action RPG,
It is
or is it like FF7, or is it like Crisis Core, or is it like FF7 Remake?
It's like FF7 Remake.
So there is pausing in the battle.
There's no pausing in the battle in FF7 Remake.
Yes, there is. The game pauses while you choose skills, doesn't it?
No.
Or does it slow down
No,
tremendously? when you
FF7
choose
Remake
skills?
is just action. It's just an action game.
There's no pausing or
No,
slowing while you choose menus?
no.
It works exactly like Crisis Core Reunion?
Yes.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that. I thought that when you were choosing shit. Is it when you're telling your
If it was a turn-based, if there was elements of turn-based shit in FF7 Remake, I wouldn't. Well, I probably would
So
hate
when you're
it as
issuing
much.
commands to the other
You
players...
don't issue commands.
You do issue commands to... What are you talking about? I played the demo of this, and I know this is the case. You issue commands to your party members.
Do you?
Yes.
What did you tell them to do?
Their abilities. I played the demo of this 3.5 years ago. You played the whole thing. How do I know this?
Because I was traumatized to try to bury the
guess so.
experience. Or it's possible that it's so ineffectual that you can ignore that element of it and it doesn't matter.
I thought that while you were choosing your abilities and targets and stuff, the game paused.
No.
If you're wrong about this, you're gonna get destroyed in the comments.
I know it's really bad.
If you're wrong about this, you're gonna get you're gonna get annihilated. So I hope you're really confident, because I believe that FF7 pauses when you are choosing targets for abilities, and that only when you're swinging and attacking is it an action game. And as soon as it becomes a menu game, unlike Kingdom Hearts is like Crisis Core. I think FF7 are.
No, you
the game
cannot
pauses.
choose your party members' actions. You can switch to them.
and then tell them what to do.
Yes, you can switch to
when
them.
you are choosing your
That's
actions,
what you do.
does the game pause?
There's no choosing actions. You swing your fucking stupid sword, and like you
use-
hold
when you're
down like a
using-
shoulder button to like change the face buttons to cast spells or something.
That's it.
Yeah.
So just like a Crisis.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. For me, ultimately, if the game is good, I have more than enough turn-based RPGs that are really good.
Yeah, like you can switch to Barret and shit, like in
Right.
in the fucking.
Yes, that I
But
recall.
it's still pure action based.
I just don't know.
And now, and to be fair to FF7 Remake, I mean, why would I ever do that? But to be fair to it, the skill cap on that action combat system is low enough so that I didn't really have to think about it. I
Right.
basiced button mashed my way through that
Right,
game.
right.
Which again,
For better or worse.
For better or worse, mostly worse,
Right.
considering that, like I said, I upgraded my sword like once or twice. There's a bunch of swords you can get, but like the one that I got after the first 4 or 5 hours of the fucking game, I never changed it.
Right.
And that's another thing that pisses me off. It's a trend in these more action-focused RPGs, is that all of a sudden you don't have a head slot, you don't have
Right.
accessory slots, you don't have a chest slot.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you get 2 accessory slots as your gear
Yeah.
and your weapon, and that's it. Fuck that, dude.
Yeah.
I want
Yes.
to be able to fucking equip out all the slots on my character sheet, so to
Yes.
speak. And I think that gets us back to my main problem, is that the further that the gameplay systems move away from the roots of Dungeons and Dragons, the less I like it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes
And
sense.
in an action system like Crisis Core or FF7 Remake or something, or FF15, your stats and those D&D qualities matter next to nothing compared to what weapon are you using and how good are you at using it.
Right.
And again, like to confirm, this is in no way shade on those type of games or people who like them, because when they're well done, they're fucking well done. It doesn't matter what they're technically titled as, you know, in terms of genre. When they're well done, they're well done. And that's fucking great. My point is, it's just a person. Maybe it's just a me problem, perhaps. But like every step that we take away from this is dice rolling your fucking Thaco on a D&D character, every step we take away from that in a pure RPG game, I don't like it.
I seriously think that you need to play Disco Elysium like immediately. I think you'd play Disco Elysium, and I think you'd be like, "Oh my god, this is what I've been waiting for."
Is there a battle system in that?
No,
Yeah, that's why I don't like it.
dude.
I'll tell you that's why.
Dude, there's,
I'll tell you that's why I have not played it yet.
I put it to you that, okay, let me flip it like this. Yes, there is a battle system in that, but the battle system happens in the actual discussions and dialogues with people.
Yeah, that sounds like shit. I don't like that.
It's not shit. That's why the game is universally considered one of the greatest games ever made.
Hence my dilemma.
It's universally considered one of the greatest games ever made. I haven't finished it yet, but I think it's absolutely incredible and unique. And it is such a deeply Dungeons and Dragons based game that it is. And the storyline is phenomenal.
So you think personally that I would like it? That me personally I would like it?
Absolutely, yes. Because you also like games that don't. Because I think it combines all of those things you're talking about with a LucasArts style adventure game. With everything is all about
my next question,
dialogue trees and skill checks.
My follow-up question to that normally would be, well, then how is the writing? Except in this case, I know that the writing is phenomenal.
I mean, you have to, for example, if you need to during your skill trees, there will be a thing where the option will be like punch him in the face, and it'll be a skill check against your violent
initiative
skill.
Or whatever. Yeah,
but
it's
not initiative. It's like psychosis or something
whatever,
fun like that. And it'll be like you have a 30% chance. Do you want to roll the dice? And then you do a dice roll. And if you fail the skill check, you could do something like attempt to hit him, and then he'll fucking break your arm. Or if you win, you could end up bypassing an entire piece of the game and moving forward because you knocked out this guy you weren't supposed to actually knock out. So I don't know if there's any actual combat. Maybe there is, but I think that I think it's an interesting way to implement deep RPG D&D based systems into something that lacks a traditional combat system, so to speak. Where the combat is more like dialogue.
So that's the first lesson that we've learned from this discussion, is that I need to play Disco Elysium.
I think you should try it.
So that's number one. Number two is, just now correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've established that you do not mind Devil May Cry in your Final Fantasy. Is that correct? You personally?
I am pan battle system. I don't know how to say that better. I am down.
You
like
swing
I said,
both ways.
I swing always.
Always.
I swing
I think
always.
pan is the appropriate prefix for that.
Pan is for sure. I swing always. I want with battle systems. I'm totally fine. I can know when it's an RPG. It's a feeling of when it is an RPG and when it's not.
Do you?
Like God of War
is it
not
like the
RPG.
Supreme Court ruling about porn?
Yes, it's like
we
I
can't
don't know.
define
I
it, but
can't
you
define
know
it
it when you see it.
I can't define an RPG, but I know it when I see it. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I am interested in Final Fantasy 16, because even if it is just like spam ///, I know there's going to be a robust leveling up system. I hope there will be. I hope there will be.
That's the problem, and I can't believe it took until this late in the discussion for us to hit on it. But more often than not, a robust leveling up system is the first thing to go when the focus shifts into fucking action.
I agree, and that is taxing. Like that's one of the things that I really like seeing those numbers go up, and I want a skill tree.
That's the
something
fucking,
like that.
That's the thing.
We don't know enough about FF16
even as
to
dumb
say.
as it was, the Crystarium or whatever the fuck that was in FF13, that was still a robust character customizer.
Well,
right?
I never got to see that because they didn't give it to you until like 20 hours into the game, and I never got that far.
Like technically, there's a bit of that in FF7 Remake and FF15. But it is clear how little effect that actually has on your performance in combat due to how it's made in such a way so that it relies more on you being good at the combat system. Now, in fairness, this could also just be a personal issue because I am not good at
I was wondering
at
maybe
Bayonetta, Ninja Gaiden, Devil May Cry. I'm not good at even
if
Dark
that's
Souls. I'm
something
not
you
good
do
at those
there,
games.
because I like the physical challenge so much.
And that's why I think it's interesting for the two of us to have the discussion, because you like that shit,
I do like
especially
the
Dark
challenge,
Souls.
yeah.
You've beaten all the Dark Souls and played the shit out of them, right?
Yeah, I've beaten one, and I've beaten Elden Ring, and I've played all of them.
Elden Ring was the first Dark Souls game that the Souls-esque, whatever you want to call it. That was the first one that I've played more than 5 hours of, and also the first one that I've beaten.
Which is
I
amazing.
have a low tolerance for that shit. I am not good at it.
It's amazing.
So it's very personal. It's a very personal issue for me when I go in, oh, Final Fantasy, great.
Right.
Oh, now you have to be good enough to beat a Dark Souls game to play
Right.
Final Fantasy? Why are you gatekeeping me like that? That pisses me off. It doesn't piss me off when the Dark Souls games do it, because that's always how they've been, and I accept the fact that I am not skilled enough at those to play them. I don't begrudge them that. The people that are good at it, awesome. I accept that I'm not good enough to play it. But Final Fantasy was a game that I could play for fucking years. And now all of a sudden, I'm watching it morph into something that sooner or later, at some point, if it keeps going down this path, we will get to a Final Fantasy that I will not be good enough to fucking play. And that pisses me the fuck
Yeah.
off.
I mean, I think that the skill cap to play to play Final Fantasy is important. I think that also the skill cap of the developers to make a turn-based RPG that is engaging is important. And I think when you look at what the environment is like right now, what are the biggest turn-based RPGs? Well, there's Pokemon, which is like the audience for that has proven that they don't care what it looks and feels like, they're gonna buy it anyway. And then the other audience I would call to mind is Persona. And I think that the Final Fantasy team at Square looks at Persona and they say, we do not have the talent to be this stylistically explosive.
But didn't you just undermine that exact point by saying that Pokemon does the same thing and Pokemon is shit, but it still sells like fucking
It doesn't have
crazy?
style, but it can sell because I don't think the crowd that buys Pokemon gives a shit about style. They care about Pokemon. But
Well,
I think
sure,
that
yeah.
I don't think Final Fantasy can get away with just a basic attack, item, defend. I think there's so many games like that you can get for $20 on Steam. I mean, Chained Echoes.
Yeah,
Chained
but not
Echoes
all
is
of them are
awesome.
not all of them are good. Chained Echoes happens to
Chained
be
Echoes
good.
is spectacular with really high production
Yeah.
values and
it
an
happens.
interesting
It happens to be
turn-based
good.
battle system.
But that's another problem that I have is that I don't.
Shout out
you're,
Chained Echoes.
Shout out Chained Echoes in a big way. But my my main problem with that game, you don't level up in that either. And that pisses me the fuck off. It has absolutely every single
what?
other hallmark of a fantastic pixel art era RPG or JRPG, but you do not level up.
Are you
No,
sure?
I'm positive.
So what's the progression system in Chained Echoes?
You get points to unlock certain abilities and advance them and shit like that. But you hit on an interesting point.
Oh, wait, no. Okay. No, dude. You get experience points, and then rather than going, you're level 7, so now your attack goes up by 2, it gives you a star, which essentially says you've leveled up and says you can now choose. Do you
Yeah,
want
I
your
fucking
attack
hate
up by
that.
2,
I
your
hated it
magic
in
up by
Chrono
2?
Cross. I hate it here.
It still is.
And I also, the big one, I hated it in FF10 too.
You hate the sphere grid?
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone likes the sphere grid, but
I love the sphere grid.
You love the sphere grid?
Yeah, and I hope you get on board with it because it's fucking what Diablo 4 is.
No, I like the sphere grid. I don't really love it.
I
But
love
no,
the
what I
sphere
hate
grid.
is that you don't have a level in Final Fantasy X. I hate that.
So you just want the number that says.
I mean, in a lot of ways,
I'm level X.
in many ways,
XX.
my fantasy Metroid game is one where they just stick a level number next to fucking Samus in the upper left.
I mean, I like leveling up. I like when there's a max level. That's why I love the FromSoft games, because they have all that shit. I just think that so many of those elements have become so dated and so done, and there's just so many of them. You got to bring something new to the table.
See, and I disagree. I do not think you need anything new to bring anything new to the table in terms of the combat system. I put it to you that if you have a great story and great characters and a well-told and executed narrative, you could have the fucking battle system from FF6 and it would be fucking phenomenal.
I agree.
That's what I
I
say.
agree. And you need to bring something new to the table. I didn't mean the battle system. I meant everything else.
Which is fine.
Tonally, narratively, and
Yeah,
that's also part of the
that's-
reason why.
That's what Square is doing. Is there not the only new thing they are bringing to the table is
the battle
Final
system.
Fantasy is now Devil May Cry. All the other areas that you've been begging us to improve in Final Fantasy for years, we haven't
Right.
touched.
Here's
But what
the
we
same
have done
shit.
is we've gotten the fuck rid of your turn-based battle system and we've replaced it with the actual people who designed the last Devil May Cry
I mean,
game.
what makes Final Fantasy Final
Why are
Fantasy?
you doing that?
What makes Final Fantasy Final Fantasy? Period.
Well, I don't know, but I do know that it's definitely not fucking Devil May Cry. That's what I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, what was that other new one? Like Final Fantasy Origin, it was like total garbo. Is that what it was? That new
Origin?
Yeah, Final Fantasy Origin, the one that was like a completely an action game, like a
Stranger of Chaos.
Yes, that.
Oh, Stranger of Paradise. Stranger of Paradise.
Yes.
That was the one that was like an impressive dev team, which is amazing that it. Oh, you know why? Because it was Shinji Mikami.
That
directed
motherfucker. That motherfucker.
So that was the one.
That's what I'm saying.
It was
If you're
trying
gonna-
to be Dark Souls.
If you're
and it was
doing
terrible.
Fine, but if you're doing a game like that, make up some dumb spin-off bullshit to have your experiments on. Like, that's fine. Do not. I don't want you shifting the direction of mainline Final Fantasy into where it becomes.
But
Devil May Cry.
when was the last time that you actually liked a mainline Final Fantasy game? Let's go back to that.
Final Fantasy 12.
And what year did that come out?
We're gonna have to do a little looking up here.
I think it's time we turn the mirror in a different direction. When did Final Fantasy 12 come out?
Oh.
May I make a guess?
Ooh.
May I make a guess? I'm gonna make a guess.
Oh. Yeah, make a guess.
2003.
Oh no. One more guess.
2008.
Overshot it.
Fuck.
It's 2006.
So
March of
did you play
2006.
it around the time it was released?
Oh yeah, I played it. I played it like almost immediately.
So the last time a Final Fantasy game came out that you liked was 16 years ago.
Incorrect, because Final Fantasy 14 I think is fantastic.
Doesn't count. It's not a mainline Final Fantasy. Also,
It's Final Fantasy 14. How do you get more mainline than that?
it's an MMO.
I'm not including it in the battle system conversation for that reason, but it is a mainline Final Fantasy game. It very much is a mainline Final Fantasy game.
Only in number.
It is one of the most popular Final Fantasy games ever.
It is. It's fantastic, but only in number. Just like it's not. It's not turn-based. It's not like I don't even want to talk about Final Fantasy 14. I think that they just use that number as a marketing chip. I don't consider 11 or 14 to be a part of them
I
at
guess
all.
that's fair because I don't consider 11 to even
like
exist.
what's the
really.
story? Like I don't like what is 11? Wait, yeah,
The story
okay.
of Final Fantasy
okay.
14 is the fight against the Primals.
If you
It's
don't
it's
consider
very-
11 to exist, then 14 has to go with it.
Okay,
because
fine,
otherwise
fine,
it's
fine,
pure
fine.
subjective.
Fine.
The
I
number
capitulate.
14 is a marketing thing because
Sure, fine, whatever.
Forget about 14.
Yeah, fine. 14 is
Single
forgotten about.
player Final Fantasy.
The last single player that I
16
truly
years
liked
ago.
was FF12.
16 years ago.
Yeah.
So, are you sure that Final Fantasy is still your bag, baby?
Well, it might have been 16 years ago, but there has only, if you're not counting 11 and you're not counting 14, there has only been 2 Final Fantasy games since then. Might be quite a lot of years, but there's only been 2 games since then. And the 2 games since then don't fucking stack up very
didn't like
favorably
'em.
against the other one. 4, 6,
didn't like 'em.
8, 9, 10, 12.
Well, you didn't like them.
I know that we didn't like them, but my point is...
You didn't like them.
Huh?
You didn't like them. I don't know how I felt about it. Oh, 13? No, fuck 13. I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, 13 is fucking garbo.
And
13
I didn't
is
play I didn't play 15.
15 was better than it had any right to be, given what its formula and setup
but
was.
did you
but
like
it was
it?
still not good. I would give it like a C plus, maybe just a flat C.
Okay, so in that case, has there been any other Final Fantasy adjacent content in the last 16 years that you've liked? Any spin-off games? Any side stories? Anything that you've played with the brand name Final Fantasy on it that you've liked other than, okay, so Final Fantasy 14. That's one.
Yeah, that's one.
And anything else?
Was there any other Final Fantasy properties?
There's been shit loads of releases with the Final Fantasy name on it in the last 16 years. Seriously, I bet 30 games called Final Fantasy have been released in the last 16 years.
Well, I mean, you got the whole 13 arc. There was 3 games with fucking lightning.
I can't
sake.
even get. All right, my point is, I just think that maybe the issue.
My point is that I have liked far more Final Fantasy games than I have not liked.
That's absolutely not true. If we open up a list of all Final
Dude,
Fantasy games.
Final Fantasy 3, fantastic. Final
Well, if
Fantasy
we're talking
4,
about main-
fantastic. Final Fantasy 5,
Whoa.
I haven't finished it, but I've played about half of it, and I liked what I've seen so far. Final Fantasy 6, great. Final Fantasy 7, great. Final Fantasy 8, great. Final Fantasy 9, great. Final Fantasy 10, great. Don't count Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 12, great. In fact, the only Final Fantasy games that I do not really care for are 1 and 2. What say you, sir?
That's all well and good, but that's the past. And what I'm saying...
Fine, but my point is that I have established myself as one who likes Final Fantasy. And just because I did not care for the last 2 games doesn't mean shit.
And I'm saying it does. I'm saying,
why?
I'm saying that a pattern is forming, and I'm saying that
What pattern?
I believe that they are
When
just...
you have 16 games, 2 of anything out of 16 is not enough to make a pattern.
I think that the brand and what they're trying to do with it is moving strictly towards getting money, and is not going to be giving you what you want and what you... And that's why I think that I think that what you want is Dragon Quest. And that world, although God knows...
Which is interesting because Dragon Quest 11, I played fucking 70 hours of it. I fucking loved it.
And God knows we don't know what DQ12 is going to be like. And God forbid, I doubt they'll do a fucking action-based battle system.
From what I've heard, I am concerned about it.
There's rumors.
Not about Dragon Quest 12. Not because of the battle system, just in general, I'm concerned about it.
Why?
Just because of the things I've heard, that like there's been problems in developments, and they're trying to take it, and they're trying to do weird shit with it. The words that a fan most dreads coming from a developer of a franchise that they love is, we're thinking about taking things in a new direction.
Well, I think Dragon Quest...
We're trying to change things up. Do not change things up. Do not take things in a different direction. There's plenty of other IPs and dev studios and shit that out there that can change things up and take stuff in tons of new directions. Don't fuck with the things that I like, please. Is that so much to ask? Apparently it is.
I think the important thing and the important reason to discuss Dragon Quest is that in the nearly 40 years, 35 years of Dragon Quest, that the game,
gotta be something like that, yeah.
Core battle system has remained essentially the same.
Yeah, fantastic.
Very interesting.
Fantastic.
So what I'm saying is,
Which lends
maybe you're
even
a
more
DQ
credence to my issue with Final Fantasy.
I'm just saying, maybe you're a DQ man and FF just is not your bag, baby. Maybe there are things about FF that you love because they're better than Dragon Quest or different. There's Chocobos and Marlboros. There's a lot of world stuff that's really great. But maybe at the end of the day, what they want is to chase the next big thing. And what Dragon Quest wants is Dragon Quest is very secure in itself, and Final Fantasy is not.
That's a very interesting observation. It really, Final Fantasy
Let's try that on for
Final
size.
Fantasy is really on some small dick energy right now.
Yeah. Okay. Whoa. Let's.
No, I stand by that comment. It really looks like, what are you scared of? What are you so worried about? Fucking Dragon Quest is over here, dick swanging in the fucking wind, like, hey, look, it's Dragon Quest 11. It looks just like Dragon Quest 9 and Dragon Quest 8 and Dragon Quest 7. And you know what? Here it fucking is. We make no apologies. Play that shit, motherfucker.
And it sold 1 billion copies.
And it sold, yeah, a fucking million copies.
It's fucking super successful.
Yeah.
I'd say it's successful. I think that
there's no reason Final Fantasy could not be doing that. Does Final Fantasy sell more than Dragon Quest?
No, not in Japan. Now, I believe there's another conversation to be had here about Western versus Eastern success, and I would be really interested to look at sales numbers over the years of Dragon Quest versus Final Fantasy.
Is that what they're doing?
I believe.
Do you think that Square Enix with Final Fantasy is chasing Western audiences while they're content to hang on to their Eastern audience with Dragon Quest? Is that what's going on here?
Yes. Now that they're the same company, they can milk Dragon Quest in Japan.
I mean, from that perspective,
and they can milk Final Fantasy in America by just pushing Final Fantasy to whatever is popular today.
From that perspective, like, why would you have 2 AAA RPG franchises that are both technically the same type of game when you could have both? You could court both types of audiences.
They made the Final Fantasy Battle Royale Fortnite knockoff, dude. They are chasing every trend.
Did they really? What was that called? Or is it that PlayStation All-Stars game?
No, it's mobile only. It's called The First Soldier.
Oh, that's what that is?
Yes, it's a battle royale.
My God.
It's a Fortnite knockoff, and apparently it is not great. I know.
Well, I mean, you said mobile game, so I mean, obviously it's not good.
Mobile only, yes. Or last I heard anyway. I believe that Square is. We know that Square are dirty dollar chasers. And I believe
Without a doubt.
that their strategy here is keep Dragon Quest on an even keel, use the Final Fantasy name,
And fuck around with the fuck around with Final Fantasy.
and use things like Ifrit and Shiva and Chocobos to draw in the people who are, oh, Chocobo, it's Final Fantasy. Oh, Shiva, it's Final Fantasy. This is Final Fantasy.
Look, it's Bahamut.
It's Final Fantasy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's the same thing I've been seeing for fucking 30 years. It's great. And we can do whatever we want with the games surrounding it. And I think the only difference between Final Fantasy 16 and Stranger of Paradise is budget and the priority of the dev team. I bet they're top people on this versus the other one. And I bet there was a chance that Stranger of Paradise could have been Final Fantasy 16 if it had been the right game. Are you looking up sales numbers?
Yeah.
What are you looking up right now? Wikipedia probably has all the information you need on sales numbers for these games. I bet Wikipedia has total sales numbers, not like first 3 week.
Yeah, but interesting. FF15 in its first week in Japan, not even 700,000 copies.
What about
Okay.
DQ11?
DQ11 in Japan, 2 days, 2 million units.
And when were these released? What year? What is this article's date, and what's the other article's date?
The Dragon Quest 11
Roughly.
numbers are August 2nd, 2017. I don't understand what difference does the date make. They're just talking about sales numbers for the first week for both. What difference does the date make?
Because for a number of different reasons, I'm just wondering if they're similarly timed in releases. Were they competitors with one another? Could they be considered to be of the same? Was 15?
Are you talking about the release date of the game?
Yes. Was 15 and it was FF15 and DQ11 released around the same time? Is the question.
Dragon Quest 11, July 2017.
Final Fantasy 15. Probably close.
No. I say no. November 2016.
Really close. Within a year. So yes, they compared with each other. And so, again...
No, whoa. Within a year is not really close. Sharing the same month is close. Sharing the same quarter is close.
They are the two mainline entries that are out at the same time for the series. So we can compare them. That's my point. The two mainline entries, there's no cultural shit. Culturally, we are in the same time period.
Yeah, but my point is that a game that was released in November of 2016 is not competing with a game released in summer of 2017.
I'm not talking about competition. And no. Okay, that's very fair. And I'm not. So no, they're not trying to sell against each other. I'm just making sure that culturally, it's not like, this was in a time period when people weren't into RPGs, and this was they were. So there's an unfair advantage. Scientifically,
No.
I would say that time difference is not a variable here.
Correct. They are very comparable numbers.
We can compare them, and DQ sold like 3 times as much as Final Fantasy in Japan.
Yeah.
And I bet in the US, it was a massive reversal. I bet FF15 way outsold Dragon Quest in the US. FF15 is one of the games you get for free with PlayStation Plus for PS5. It's that big.
Let's find out.
That's one of like 20 games that you get. It's considered to be like a pillar game. You do not get Dragon Quest for free. Americans look at this and they're like, this is cartoony anime stuff, which a lot of Americans like, yes.
Well, it's also interesting that Dragon Quest 11, I didn't know this, came out in Japan for PS4 and 3DS. I didn't know that was a 3DS game.
Wow.
But only the PS4 version even managed to make it westward.
And the Switch version.
Initially, the Switch version didn't come out. The Switch ported it much later.
Much later. I'm just curious, does the Wikipedia article have, or I'm sorry, does Final Fantasy 15 US sales numbers? Or I'm sorry, Dragon Quest 11 US sales numbers for,
What are you asking me to look up?
I wanted Final Fantasy 15 versus US sales numbers versus Dragon Quest if possible. I'm sure Dragon Quest is like nothing, but I'm curious about, also, I mean, the fact that the reach of Final Fantasy 15, the fact that it's on that PlayStation set shows that the reach is much greater. Sales or not.
Sales. In Japan, the PS4 version of FF15 topped Japanese gaming charts, selling 700,000 units. The Xbox One sold nearly 4,000.
I can't believe in 2 decades Microsoft has not been able to get a
Oh my
foothold
god.
there.
Total sales of both versions came to 700,000 units approximately.
In Japan. Does it say anything about US sales?
Yes, in Japan. Second week in the region, oh my god. Second week sales in the region were down 80,000 units, down 88% from launch week, and causing the game to drop to 5th place. Wow.
Not a lot of appetite compared to Dragon Quest. So they are throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, and putting the name Final Fantasy on it.
That's really what it seems like. When
That
you're
is
doing
not- those are not good sales numbers.
consistent numbers, the way that Dragon Quest is, because of course now this being the modern video game age, we have to look at everything through the lens of fucking disaster end state capitalism. And looking at this that way, if you're a business and you have these 2 tentpole pillar fucking franchises, if one is doing the consistent numbers like Dragon Quest, it makes sense to not fuck with that.
Right.
Whereas your other one, Final Fantasy VII, or God, that's just in my fucking brain so goddamn much. Final Fantasy, where that seems, just from the cursory bit of research we've done here right now, Final Fantasy sales numbers seem to vacillate wildly. Like,
Yeah, I wonder if they've been dropping. We need to find out, because that's so. In thesis, because we got to wrap this up.
yeah.
I think that there's the point we got to is I would really love to understand more about have Final Fantasy sales numbers been declining while Dragon Quest maintains, and is it possible that maybe FF just is no longer your bag, baby, and you are actually a Dragon Quest man, and that's okay. But I would
It's
say
totally
rather
fine.
than being mad about it, maybe it's time for acceptance.
No, it will never be time for acceptance. I will never accept. I will rage against the dying of the franchise until my last breath.
I'm gonna sit
There
you
will
down,
never be time for acceptance.
make you play Final
I can
Fantasy
tell you,
Pachinko.
spoiler alert, there will be no acceptance. There will only be rage and hatred
I can't wait till
and vitriol.
Final Fantasy 17 comes out exclusively for iPhone 16. Mobile only. You can only play it with one finger. It's an idle game, and you can buy gems.
Yeah, you can buy Gil
Yeah,
for $5.
buy a level. You can buy levels. All right. Well,
The only reason, this last thing, the only reason that I'm not ready to agree with that is because I don't think 2 games is enough to establish a trend. Although it certainly looks
It
like
looks like 3.
It certainly looks like it's going to. No,
Looks
2
like-
games. FF14 or FF15, FF16.
and
That's 2.
13 and 15.
13 was a turn-based classic battle system.
Yeah, but you didn't like it. It wasn't your bag.
I
Baby.
didn't like it.
It wasn't your
but
bag, baby.
I didn't like it, but it wasn't a fucking
The
action
problem,
game.
but the problem wasn't the battle system, though. It was Final Fantasy, and I'm saying maybe the problem isn't the battle system. Maybe Final Fantasy is just not your bag, baby. That's my thesis. It's not the battle system. Maybe Final Fantasy is just not your bag, baby, because they're throwing spaghetti at the wall to try to make it stick, to try to capture Western audiences and make money because they're greedy motherfuckers.
It is
That's
a
my
very
thesis.
good. It is a very good theory, but the fact that I love FF14 and have spent like 150 hours playing
It's an MMO. It's a completely different team, entirely different team, totally different people working on it. It just has the same title. That's it.
But
And
I mean, it is related as much to FF15 as FF12 is related to FF13.
yeah, as in 0.
Yeah.
Right. It's a
Therefore, that doesn't go to your point that I just don't like Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy is ever rarely related to each other.
Oh, I mean, you like the MMO Final Fantasy.
I do.
Let's in terms of maybe single player console or single player Final Fantasies are not your bag, baby. Maybe. We're about to see. There's going to be a third one in a row.
We are about to see. I will
Third in a row,
I will
dude.
tell you this. I will be ready to concede when we see what kind of game FF17 is.
So it'll take you 4 games to be like, oh, it's not my bag, baby.
I mean, when you're talking about a system that spans almost 20 games, that's not that unreasonable.
Shagadelic, baby.
All right, I think that's all we have to say about this. I don't know if we learned anything. I don't know if we came to any stunning conclusions.
I learned some stuff about Dragon Quest drastically outselling Final Fantasy that I think is
Yeah, that's very interesting. I did not suspect that. I did not suspect that.
Understand, are Final Fantasy sales numbers dropping while DQ remains the same? And is that guiding Square's decision? This and much more speculation? Maybe never.
Maybe never. We love y'all today. We love you all the fucking way. We'll catch you next time.
Yup, woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Huh? Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm back down. Back down. What? Yup, woke up, smoke up, blunt, then I pass out. Pass out. Huh? Woke up, what up, smoke up, blunt, then I'm